Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If sign-in system in High School DxD. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 101, The Divine Dividing Juggernaut Drive. Valet goes all out. Looking at the two figures facing each other in the sky, Serzex, Michael, and Azazel all had serious expressions on their faces. Rias and the others were also very worried about me. After all, this time my opponent was the White Dragon Emperor. I've been looking forward to this fight for a long time. Habari Kyoya. Here I come. The White Dragon Emperor, Veli, in the sky, looked at me, roared, and immediately attacked. Near-infinite magic bullets shot out from Vala's dragon hands, transforming into streams of silver-white light heading towards me. However, facing this level of attack, I didn't even move, letting the magic bullets bombard my body. Boom! 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 The deafening explosions continued, and the flashes of light illuminated the already crimson sky within the barrier. Valet kept up his relentless assault, but I remained unharmed. The magic bullets didn't even reach my body, blocked by the blue barrier surrounding me. Seeing that his attacks were ineffective, Valet channeled magic into his wings for a burst of speed, instantly charging at me. Thump! Valet punched my defensive light shield. But the shield remained intact. Seeing this, Valet's eyes widened, his expression darkening. However, in the next moment, I frowned, because I discovered that the power of the light shield was constantly weakening, while Vala's power was constantly increasing. Then, I understood. This must be the ability of the sacred gear, Divine Dividing. As I had suspected, Vali was using Divide and Absorb. The combination of these two abilities meant that every 10 seconds he would have his opponent's power once and add the half power to himself. However, he couldn't replenish his stamina, only increasing his power. And due to the limitations of his physical body, Vali couldn't absorb an infinite amount of power. Otherwise, his body wouldn't be able to handle it. He could only expel the excess power through his wings. Seeing the barrier weakening, I immediately dispelled it and, in the same instant, activated the Gate of Babylon. Countless, noble phantasms surged towards Vala like a tidal wave. Clearly, Vala didn't react in time and was directly hit by several noble phantasms. Crack! The silver-white armor on the areas where he was hit continuously shattered and fell off, revealing parts of Vala's true form. More seriously, Vali was now bleeding from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, I said calmly, "My casual attacks have already reached your limit. Do you want to surrender? Otherwise, you might really die." My words echoed throughout the barrier. Everyone was stunned into silence. They couldn't believe I would say such a thing. Vala's mouth twitched. No one had ever spoken to him so condescendingly. But he wasn't angry. After just a few seconds of exchanging blows, he already knew that he might not actually be my match. However, he still wasn't afraid, and the fighting spirit in his eyes was almost tangible. "I may die, but I will never surrender. If I give up now, I will never be able to move forward." Then, Vala seemed to have made up his mind, ready to risk everything. "Albion, let's use our strongest move." "Of course, Vali. Let him witness the power of the heavenly dragon." Vala's body, within which resided Albion, responded. As he finished speaking, the damaged silver-white armor on Vala's body shone with a white light, and he began to chant an incantation. "I, who am about to awaken, am the heavenly dragon who lost all to the principles of supremacy. I envy the infinite and I pursue the dream. I shall become the white dragon of supremacy. And I shall take you to the limits of innocence." As Vala chanted, the barrier around us began to shake violently, and Vala erupted in a silver-white aura. The silver light grew stronger, expanding until the entire barrier was bathed in its brilliance. The divine White Dragon Emperor's Juggernaut Drive. With Vala's roar, the form of his armor changed significantly. Enormous blue wings sprouted from his back. His hands and feet extended into sharp claws, and several horn-like protrusions appeared on his helmet. After Valley had fully entered Juggernaut Drive mode, the entire dimensional barrier began to crack and crumble. Surzex and Michael had to reinforce it again. Rias and the others, feeling the power radiating from the White Dragon Emperor Valley, all paled. They finally understood the true terror of the heavenly dragon power. Then, they couldn't help but worry about Kyoya. A battle at this level was a matter of life and death. He's using the Juggernaut Drive? Is he really going all out, Valley? Azazel, however, murmured with a complicated expression. Juggernaut Drive was the trump card of the White Dragon Emperor and the Red Dragon Emperor. Once activated, their strength, attack power, and speed would all be comprehensively enhanced. But the drawbacks were also obvious. Using Juggernaut Drive for a short time was fine, but activating it for extended periods would invoke a curse, causing serious damage to the body. More seriously, maintaining Juggernaut Drive required magic power or life force as a substitute. Although Valley had some devil blood, extending his lifespan, it still placed a great burden on him. If he lost control, he might even die. And Azazel, as Vala's foster father, naturally didn't want this to happen. But there was nothing he could do. Hibari Kyoya, behold my true power. Because he had forced himself into Juggernaut Drive mode, Valley was constantly enduring the curse. Even in normal state, Valley wouldn't be able to maintain Juggernaut Drive for long, let alone in his injured state. Therefore, Vala's eyes were bloodshot, and his magic power and life force were constantly burning. In the next moment, the White Dragon Emperor Valley opened his mouth wide, and a silver-white light gathered within, and then a flash of light. ZZZ. A terrifying silver-white laser shot straight towards me. Seeing the laser approaching, I summoned the Sword of Promised Victory, and without hesitation, I swung the sword, splitting the laser attack. However, the split white laser didn't stop. Everything it passed was obliterated. The barrier of the conference room vanished, and it was only through the combined defense of the three factions leaders that the aftershocks of the explosion were neutralized. This is the Heavenly Dragon Juggernaut Drive? It's hard to believe that his power can reach this level. Michael, Surzex, and Azazel looked incredibly serious. Monster! In their eyes, Valley was a monster and Kyoya was an even greater monster. Chapter 102, Identity Exposed? The shocking revelation. After forcing Vala back with a sword strike, I sheathed Excalibur, my gaze fixed on a particular spot, and called out, "You've been watching for so long, and you're still going to hide?" Red Dragon Emperor Lux. Red Dragon Emperor. The other heavenly dragon is nearby? The leaders of the three factions nearby, as well as Rias and the others, were all startled. Suddenly, a red streak of light flew over at an astonishing speed, forming a three-way standoff with me and the White Dragon Emperor, Valley. The newcomer was indeed the Red Dragon Emperor, Lux. Tisk, Valley, giving it your all already? You even used Juggernaut Drive. Lux was initially shocked to see Valley, but then he turned to look at me, his heart filled with a strong desire to fight. I knew you were strong, Kyoya Hibari. Let's have a fight. Seeing you and Vala fight, I couldn't hold back any longer. Before I could speak, Valley, beside me, roared at Lux angrily, "Hey! Bastard Lux, this is my fight. I'm the one fighting him, so stay out of it." "Ha! Look who's talking, all beat up and bruised. Just step aside and let me handle this," Lux retorted, waving him off dismissively. His words enraged Valley, who immediately attacked Lux. Seeing this, Lux chanted an incantation. "I, who am about to awaken, am the heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. I laugh at the infinite, and I fret over the dream. I shall become the red dragon of domination. And I shall sink you to the depths of the crimson purgatory." Lux also directly activated Juggernaut Drive, and then started fighting with Valley. In an instant, red and white figures clashed in the sky, the sounds of boosting and dividing echoing intermittently. The leaders far away, Azazel and Michael, as well as Rias and the others, were all stunned. What's going on? Wasn't this supposed to be Kyoya and the White Dragon Emperor Vala's fight? Why are the two heavenly dragons fighting each other? But even more speechless was me, standing there awkwardly as Lux and Vala fought. I twitched my mouth. Could this be the two heavenly dragons' bromance? This is a great opportunity to complete the task. I unleashed a terrifying bolt of lightning powerful enough to slay a Mao, interrupting the two who were fighting. Since you both want to fight me so badly, then come at me together. Saying this, I unleashed my transcendent aura, instantly pressing Valley and Lux to the ground, where they struggled to resist. Why does this draconic aura feel so familiar? Drag, do you feel it too? Albion was incredulous. Hearing Albion's words, Drag was also shocked. Albion, do you feel that familiar sensation too? It's as if we were facing. Before he could finish, both Albion and Drag seemed to realize something, their very souls trembling with fear. A transcendent aura? Kyoya-kun is a transcendent being? Surzex's eyes widened in astonishment. What? Kyoya is a transcendent. Oni-sama, are you joking? Rias exclaimed in disbelief after hearing Surzex's words. Not only Rias, but Akino, Kaneko, Kiba, Kyome, Michael, Azazel, and Seraphal stared in astonishment. That's right. Azazel, Michael, surely you can sense it as well. Only a transcendent being can possess such aura. Moreover. Surzex paused for a moment, then continued, I've never sensed such a horrifying power before, not even from Shiva. This aura is almost comparable to the biblical gods. Surzex murmured again in disbelief. His heart was filled with shock. God! Hearing Mao Surzex's words, Rias and the other younger members gasped, their hands covering their mouths in shock. That was the strongest god in the legends. They couldn't imagine that Kyoya had such power. It completely shattered their perception of Kyoya. Azazel also widened his eyes, his mouth agape, unable to believe what he was seeing. I just fought Kyoya the other day, and he was clearly only at the Mao class level. How could he suddenly? Azazel rubbed his eyes repeatedly, wondering if he was dreaming. At this moment, everyone noticed that Michael was staring blankly, muttering something under his breath. God! Kyoya! Michael stared intently at me, repeating these words. Hey, Michael. You don't have to be this shocked. Azazel scratched his head, looking at Michael strangely. Michael turned to look at Azazel and Surzex, and said in shock, Do you feel the draconic aura coming from Kyoya? Doesn't it feel familiar? Draconic aura? Familiar? Hearing this, Azazel, Surzex, and Seraphal were all taken aback, not understanding what he meant. But they still carefully focused on the energy around me. Suddenly, the three of them opened their eyes wide and staggered back a few steps, then froze, mouths agape, unable to utter a single word. And Rias and the others, seeing this, were also stunned into silence. What had the Mao and the fallen angel Governor-General thought of that would cause them to react strongly? After a moment, Michael was the first to speak, breaking the silence. Surely you haven't forgotten that incident from back then, have you? To this, Azazel responded with a hint of panic in his voice. Wait, Michael, you can't mean to say that Kyoya is that dragon from back then. That's not a funny joke. However, Surzex, beside him, questioned, then how do you explain this familiar draconic aura? Surely you're not going to tell me it's just a coincidence? Pausing for a moment, Surzex continued, his tone low, that dragon single-handedly killed the two heavenly dragons and then mysteriously vanished without a trace. There hasn't been a single clue about him since. And now, Kyoya's aura is almost identical. It can't be a coincidence, so there's only one explanation. After he finished speaking, the three leaders all looked at me with strange expressions. They all had the same thought, could it be Kyoya? Chapter 103, The Azure Dragon's Power Unleashed, the Depairing Valley and Lux. Looking at Valley and Lux, I took a deep breath and said seriously, now you two understand the difference in our power, right? I'll give you two choices, surrender, or be beaten into submission. Though they couldn't refute it, Valley and Lux still grimaced at my words. Then, Drag and Albion, residing within them, urged them, Valley, surrender. The two of you together have absolutely no chance of defeating him. That's right, your power levels are too far apart. Although it's humiliating, it's better than losing your lives. Albion and Drag were almost certain that I was the dragon who had killed them in ancient times. Even in their prime, they weren't my match, let alone Valley and Lux in their current state. It was like throwing eggs at a rock, utterly futile. Hearing Drag and Albion's urging, Valley and Lux exchanged a look, and then burst into laughter. Even if it means death, we will not retreat. As soon as they spoke, Valley and Lux felt the pressure on them disappear. The oppressive aura had suddenly vanished. Valley and Lux were stunned, looking at me with confusion, not understanding what I was doing. As expected of the two heavenly dragons. Even in the face of death, you remain fearless. In that case, I'll show you something amazing. He. I smiled cryptically. Seeing the smile on my face, Valley and Lux felt a chill run down their spines. They both instinctively distanced themselves from me, increasing the flow of their magic power in order to strengthen their juggernaut drive and extend its duration. This is my first time using this power. So, enjoy the show. But try not to die, okay? I said with a smirk, my kind reminder sending shivers down their spines. Then, I extended my hands, unleashing the power of the Azure Dragon. Whoosh! A brilliant, star-like light erupted from my body, shooting straight into the cosmos. At the same time, a vast, azure energy began to coalesce around me, slowly coalescing into a majestic, azure dragon phantom that exuded an aura of immense power and authority. Roar! In the next instant, the azure dragon phantom let out a roar that shattered the surrounding barrier, and the shockwaves completely destroyed all the structures within the barrier, sweeping across the land. Quick! Join forces and create a new barrier, or Ko'o Town will be destroyed. Azazel shouted a warning, then spread his 12 black wings. He summoned his artificial sacred gear, Downfall Dragon Spear, and activated his Balance Breaker, Downfall Dragon Armor, using all his power to construct a new defensive barrier. Seeing Azazel's actions, Surzex's expression also changed. He unleashed his transcendent power, infusing the barrier with his power of destruction. Michael also spread his 12 golden wings, holy light continuously reinforcing the new barrier. Sarah Fall also unleashed her Mouthclass magic power, straining to maintain the barrier's stability. At the same time, the leaders of the three factions ordered all the guards who could still move to help. Seeing the leaders of the three factions, with blood trickling from the corners of their mouths, Rias and the others were shocked. These were the strongest beings of the angels, fallen angels, and devils. Yet, they were struggling. The aura of the Azure Dragon Phantom alone had made it hard for them to circulate their magic power, and now, having to directly resist its power, even their very souls were trembling with fear. Rias and Sona quickly instructed their respective peerage members to join in reinforcing the barrier. Meanwhile, the Azure Dragon Phantom above me radiated an overwhelming pressure that seemed to surge like a tide, wreaking havoc. This immense power sent Valley and Lux flying without any resistance. They were like broken kites, sent tumbling through the air by the shockwaves, coughing up blood. Before they could even regain their footing, an even more terrifying pressure was suddenly exerted upon them. Thump! Thump! This immense pressure forced the two of them to the ground, face down, completely unable to move. They couldn't move at all. Lux! Valley! Surrender! Maybe you'll survive. Otherwise, you'll really die. Drag and Albion urgently warned. In their experience as heavenly dragons, they had never encountered such a horrifying dragon. Even the Great Red and the Infinite Dragon God were far inferior to this mysterious dragon. Feeling the aura of the mysterious dragon, Drag and Albion felt an intense sense of reverence rising within them. This dragon's existence was a being they could only look up to, an existence they could never reach. Even though I guessed this dragon phantom was connected to Habari Kyoya, I didn't expect it to be his true power. What a surprise! Vala smiled bitterly, his face pale. He coughed up a large amount of blood. We want to surrender, but we can't move. Lux also looked miserable, gritting his teeth. The shockwaves alone were causing him to cough up blood. He could barely communicate with the two heavenly dragons. Originally, they thought that even with the significant difference in strength, they would still have a chance to fight and maybe survive. Who knew they would be utterly outmatched? Now, the power I had unleashed made them feel like their very souls were about to be crushed. They couldn't even surrender. In the next instant, the power of the Azure Dragon Phantom intensified again, exerting an even more terrifying pressure on Valley and Lux. Instantly, Valley and Lux were forced out of their Juggernaut Drive states. Even more despairingly, they were right below the Azure Dragon Phantom. Their armor began to disintegrate. Their limbs were broken, blood gushing out, and their eyes held no hope of survival. They were about to end their lives in such a miserable way. But to die at the hands of such a great dragon, it was an honorable death. Chapter 104, The Tremors Throughout the World, Blackmailing Azazel. The shockwaves of this battle reached far beyond the immediate participants. The various gods and Buddha, yokai, devils, and vampires all felt the tremor. They felt a primal fear, a sense of impending doom, as if a nightmare had descended upon them. It was an instinctive terror, etched into their very souls. But intertwined with this fear was a sense of reverence. After all, no one had ever witnessed such a powerful existence. However, as they observed the Azure Dragon's phantom, the gods began to scheme, their minds racing with different ideas. In the realm of the dead, Hades gripped his staff tightly, his green eyes flickering with an unknown light. This immense divine aura is no illusion. The dragon phantom has reappeared. In Mount Meru, Hindu mythology. Indra stared at the Azure Dragon Phantom dominating the three factions, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Could the source of the Dragon Phantom be in Ko Town? The leaders of the angels, fallen angels, and devils are holding a peace conference there right now. Could Chow Chow and the Cows Brigade be attacking them? Thinking of this, Indra's expression changed. He looked grimly at the Dragon Phantom above Ko Town. After a moment of thought, he roared at his subordinates below. Quick! Contact Chow Chow immediately. Ask him what he's been up to lately. Once you reach him, tell him to get his ass back to Mount Meru immediately. In Asgard, Norse mythology. Odin, the All-Father, clutched his bleeding right eye, his face filled with terror. I must accelerate negotiations with the three factions and sign a peace treaty. However, Odin didn't notice the sinister glint in the eye of Loki, the god of mischief, beside him. Meanwhile, other powerhouses who witnessed the Dragon Phantom were also making their own plans, their gazes flickering as they plotted. Ha! How interesting! This power far surpasses that of Ophis. If I can obtain it, I might be able to deal with Great Red. Rizavim Levon Lucifer, the current leader of the Cows Brigade, looked at the Dragon Phantom, his expression not one of fear, but of strange excitement. I'll have to discuss this with Hades. In the dimensional gap. Great Red had stopped flying for the second time because of the Dragon Phantom's appearance. She looked towards Ko Town. She couldn't understand how such a powerful dragon existed. But she was more interested in me, the source of the Dragon Phantom. Then, her crimson dragon eyes were fixed on me, as she continued to manipulate the chaos and turmoil in the three factions from afar. And the other dragon god, the adorable and infinitely cute dragon god, Ophis, was also watching the Azure Dragon Phantom. This time, I must find you, the power I long for. You can definitely help me reclaim my original tranquility. Ophis was sitting atop a mountain, a rare smile gracing her small face. All the various pantheons, gods and Buddha, yokai, devils, and vampires were engaged in intense discussions about the Azure Dragon Phantom. Meanwhile, back in Ko Town. Feeling the nearly invincible power within me, I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. It's exhilarating to be so powerful. Power truly is intoxicating. I should flex my power more often. Then, looking at Valley and Lux's miserable states, I figured I had taught them enough. They should have learned their lesson. Roar! After showing off a bit, I waved my hand, and the Azure Dragon Phantom roared once more before disappearing. However, I hadn't anticipated the effect of this roar. The roar caused countless gods who were observing through their divine senses to cough up blood. They cursed the owner of the dragon phantom internally. Even those maintaining the barrier were affected, their blood churning. The barrier shattered once again. Even Michael, known for his good nature, glared at me resentfully. But the worst off were Valley and Lux. They were already seriously injured, and this roar nearly killed them. Crap! I overdid it. Seeing this, I felt a little embarrassed. I hadn't expected the Azure Dragon Phantom's roar to be so devastating. The Azure Dragon Phantom's power surpassed double-digit beings. One must understand, 3-digit powerhouses were powerful enough to destroy entire star systems. Even the Great Red was barely in the 3-digit range. And I had just unleashed a tiny fraction of the Azure Dragon's power, yet it had shaken this world. If I had unleashed just a bit more, it would have completely shattered the DxD world, reducing it to dust. Then, I looked at Valley and Lux and said, "Well, Valley, Lux, do you have anything more to say?" "There's nothing more to say. We lost. Just kill us. To die at your hands, we have no complaints." Valley and Lux exchanged a look, then smiled bitterly and responded. At this point, the two of them were lying on the ground, barely able to breathe. Ding! Congratulations to the host for defeating Valley and Lux. Completed Black Task, Reward, Black Grade Gift Bag X2. Hearing the system notification, I smiled. I stared at Valley, wondering whether or not to kill him. But then, I waved my hand, and a surge of life force poured into the bodies of Valley and Lux. Moments later, Valley and Lux's injuries had completely healed. After they got up, they looked at me with confusion. "Hibari Kyoya, what do you mean by this? Why aren't you killing us?" In response, I smirked. Didn't I say it before? This was just a spar, not a life or death battle. So I won't kill you. Why? Do you two really want to die? Hearing my words, Valley and Lux were at a loss. They hadn't expected that a single sentence from me earlier would save their lives. They both smiled bitterly. Just then, everyone else arrived, and Azazel said awkwardly, "Hibari Kyoya, thank you for sparing Valley." Hearing Azazel's words, I rolled my eyes, thinking of something, and said seriously, "Azazel, I spared Valley because of our agreement. But you're also responsible for bringing him here as a spy." Then I changed my tone. "But, if you don't want me to pursue this matter, how about this? My girls here still haven't gotten decent sacred gears. Since you've created so many artificial sacred gears, it wouldn't be too much to ask for a few, would it?" Chapter 105. Revealing the imminent Great Red's death, the EXE world. Hee, I don't need many. One for each of my women should be enough. I said pointedly. What? One sacred gear each? Hearing my words, Azazel nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. One sacred gear for each of them? Do you think I'm running a charity here? Do you have any idea how hard it is to make artificial sacred gears? The others also looked at me with strange expressions, clearly amused. Tomo, Yura, Ruruko, and the others were thrilled to hear that I was asking Azazel for sacred gears for them. Their eyes sparkled with anticipation. Akino, in particular, couldn't help but giggle at Azazel's misfortune. Kyoya, you're clearly blackmailing me. Even if I've made some artificial sacred gears, there's no way I have enough for all of them. Azazel looked miserable, sighing helplessly. I can give you 4 or 5 at most. I don't have any more. Fine, that's acceptable. I readily agreed. After all, I knew that Azazel didn't have many artificial sacred gears at the moment. It was enough to get a few. I could always acquire more weapons for my girls in the future. Seeing how quickly I agreed, Azazel felt a twitch in his mouth, as if he had been tricked. But he had no choice but to give in. Just then, Albion and Drake, residing within Valley and Lux, spoke up. Hibari Kyoya, we sense that familiar aura from you. Can you tell us whether you were the dragon who killed us in the Great War of Ancient Times? Everyone present was surprised by the two heavenly dragons' question. Not knowing the answer, Rias and the others stared at me, puzzled. Killed the two heavenly dragons? When did Coyote kill the two heavenly dragons? Wasn't it the three factions who joined forces to kill them? Seeing the confused looks on Rias and the others' faces, Surzex explained the truth of the Great War to them. Learning the truth, Rias and the others, including Valley and Lux, were stunned. Then, they looked at me with complicated expressions, waiting for my answer. Tisk, it seems I left quite an impression on the two heavenly dragons. You still remember my aura after all this time. How touching! I said, a playful smirk on my face. Exclamation point. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. My words undoubtedly confirmed their suspicions. Even the two heavenly dragons, Michael and Surzex, were shaken, though they had already prepared themselves mentally. I ignored their surprise and continued to explain myself. Back then, I used a special method to travel through time. I didn't expect to end up at the site of the battle between the biblical god and the Beast Emperor 666. I helped the biblical god kill the Beast Emperor 666, but that caused a temporal paradox, so I concealed this fact. Then I returned to heaven with the biblical god and set up a series of plans to maintain the normal course of the world. You all know the rest. After I finished speaking, the scene fell silent. After a while, Michael sighed in amazement. Time travel, simply unheard of. It seems Kyoya is still hiding many powers. Everyone nodded in agreement. After all, I always seem to have unexpected trump cards up my sleeve, like the Azure Dragon Phantom this time. Thinking of this, Azazel couldn't help but ask about it. Hey Kyoya, can you tell us the connection between you and that Dragon Phantom? After all, that mysterious dragon's power seems superior to the Great Red. We're quite curious. Glancing around and seeing that everyone else was also looking at me, I explained, think of that dragon as existing in another world. It's currently residing within me, but I can call upon its power at any time. Also, many of my abilities come from different worlds. Having reached this point, I decided to stop hiding and reveal everything. What? There are other worlds? Hearing this, Surzex, Azazel, Michael, and even Valley and Lux were dumbfounded. My words were beyond their comprehension. After all, in the DxD world, aside from Great Red and the biblical god, almost no one knew of the existence of other worlds. The two heavenly dragons, Albion and Draig, were even more stunned, and they asked in awe and reverence, Habari Kyoya, are dragons from other worlds all that strong? I was taken aback by their question, then I smiled and said, how should I put it? The dragon residing within me is practically invincible. Only a few universes have beings this powerful. But... I paused, my gaze turning to the sky. But what? Hearing me suddenly stop, everyone was puzzled. But there's a world close to ours. In the near future, it will invade our world. Even the Great Red will be beheaded by an evil god from that world. That's why the biblical god was constantly creating sacred gears, trying to increase our world's power, so we could resist the invasion from the other world. Then, I revealed a shocking piece of news. Hearing this, the leaders of the three factions were all shocked. Rias and the others paled, their faces drained of color. Kyoya, are you serious? Are the evil gods of that other world really that powerful? Azazel was in disbelief. I nodded seriously. Yes. The invaders in question have already killed all organic life in their own world. They are known as the mechanical evil gods, and their power is immense. This news was simply too devastating. Even the Great Red had been killed, so weren't they just waiting to die? Seeing everyone's despairing expressions, I stopped scaring them. Tisk, why so pessimistic? I'm still here, aren't I? Exclamation point. Kyoya. Rias, Aquino, and the others, hearing my words, looked at me with renewed hope. Azazel's eyes lit up, and he smiled. Chapter 106, Mage Mode, Repairing the Heavens System. Kyoya, can you really resist the invasion of the otherworldly evil gods? Surzex looked intently at me, his tone filled with urgency and worry. Thinking this, everyone looked at me with hopeful expressions. Don't worry. Even the strongest of those 3 mechanical evil gods is only at the mid-level of 3 digits, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. The Azure Dragon within me is comparable in power to a 1-digit. They're completely incomparable. Hiss. Hearing my words, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Originally, they didn't have a clear concept of the mysterious dragon's power. But now I had made it abundantly clear. Ding! Task completed. Congratulations, host, for obtaining 1 purple grade gift bag. Just then, the system notification for completing the task sounded. I was slightly taken aback. Then, I glanced at Azazel, Surzex, Michael, and the others, and saw their expressions of terror and awe. So Surzex's task was this easy to complete. I guess he probably didn't know the Azure Dragon's power before. But now. So, including the tasks related to Valley and Lux, I now have 1 purple gift bag and 2 black gift bags. Seeing this, I turned to look at Michael, thinking it was time to help this poor sap archangel. Then, I activated Pride from Trinity 7 anime, donning a black long coat with golden lines. This was my mage mode transformation. A grimoire appeared in my hand, and before everyone's astonished eyes, I activated the magic of the control theme. The heavens system is now functioning normally. Michael, when you return to heaven, the angelic pool will be able to continue to birth pure-blooded angels. And you will also be able to control the heavens system. I spoke to Michael after a moment. What? Michael was stunned at first, then exclaimed in surprise. Azazel and Surzex were also shocked, completely bewildered. He can even repair heaven's system? That's too much. And thinking back to the Azure Dragon Phantom, their various strange abilities, they accepted it. But their shock didn't diminish in the slightest. Of course. Just now, I used a mage's ability to completely rewrite the rules of heaven's system. I said, with confidence. That's right. I had just used the control theme magic to reach the level of world construction, which allowed me to manipulate the holy power within the heavenly system and executing the command, Holy Power Erasure. The main effect was to remove the restrictions of heaven's system. Therefore, it was the strongest anti-mage magic, commonly known as the nude magic. Kyoya, thank you so much. To tell you the truth, ever since God died, heaven's system has been almost completely paralyzed. Even Michael, who was usually calm and composed, couldn't contain his excitement and gratitude when he heard the news. Meanwhile, in heaven, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and the other seraphim were staring blankly at the suddenly functioning system, looking bewildered and shocked. When they saw the pure faith energy continuously surging from the angelic pool, and the new angels continuing to be born, they became even more bewildered. What's going on? How did the heavenly system suddenly restart? Could it be that God has returned? Thinking of this, they were excited. But although the biblical God was indeed alive, this was my doing. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Reward, 1 black grade gift bag. At the same time, I also heard the system notification for the completion of Michael's task. Everything's done. I should head back now, I said, stretching and yawning. Kyoya, aren't you going to stay for the rest of the meeting? We were hoping to hear your opinions. Just then, Michael couldn't help but interject. After all, I was undoubtedly the strongest being in this world now, my words carried a lot of weight. Hearing this, I waved my hand dismissively. I'm not interested in the meeting. Leave it to the 3 of you. I'll pass. Seeing this, Surzex, Michael, and Azazel were a little disappointed, but they didn't say anything more. Valley and Lux, on the other hand, looked at me with smiles. Habari Kyoya, we won't forget this favor. Since it seems there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. Seeing that Valley and Lux were about to leave, Azazel suddenly reminded them, Valley, about Habari Kyoya and the Dragon Phantom. I hope you won't spread it around. Otherwise, it could cause a lot of trouble. Hearing this, Valley and Lux looked at each other, then nodded. Why would you hide something like that? Tell anyone who asks exactly what you saw. Let's see which idiot is tired of living enough to try and cause me trouble. If anyone dares to mess with me, I'll turn them into dust. I'll wipe them off the face of the earth. I declared. Seeing this, Valley and Lux's mouths twitched. Then, filled with shock, they left Kuo Town. Azazel and Surzex, on the other hand, looked at me with strange expressions. Thinking about my earlier words, they felt a chill run down their spines. What they were thinking was, when we get back, we must tell the devils/fallen angels not to mess with Hibari Kyoya. Or they won't even know how they died. On the other hand, Michael didn't have such worries. Not only because such a situation wouldn't occur in heaven, but also because of my close relationship with their lord. Seeing that there was nothing else, I was also preparing to go home. But suddenly, I turned to Michael and grinned. By the way, Michael, remember to bring Gabriel next time. I miss her. Ha! Hearing this, Michael's mouth twitched. He set his sights on Gabriel. But thinking back to the scene of me and Gabriel in heaven, he could only agree helplessly. I understand. I'll bring Gabriel next time. The others also had different expressions. Azazel was full of admiration, smiling. TSK, I see you've set your sights on Gabriel. Hearing Azazel's words, Rias and Sona looked resentful. If Gabriel came too, wouldn't they have another strong rival? The other girls also had different expressions. Even Seraphal felt a pang of frustration and glared at me. Seeing this, I was a little stunned. Is Seraphal jealous? Head excellent, I'll get you sooner or later. Chapter 107, Generous Rewards a Lecherous Harem Protagonist? Back home. I completely relaxed. Lying on the bed, I suddenly remembered that I still had 4 rewards to open. System, open the rewards. The system's voice rang out. Ding! Gift bags opened successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Sandalphon, Grimoire Astil Manuscript, Telekinesis, Mental Out, from a certain magical index. I had opened 4 gift bags at once, and I was filled with anticipation. Let me see. Sandalphon. Isn't that Toka Yatagami's angel from Data Live? Toka Yatagami's angel, Sandalphon, was a dual-bladed greatsword, usually stored in the back of her throne. The throne itself could be used to defend against attacks, and it could also transform into a glider for flight. Of course, it could also transform into its final form by absorbing the throne, the Halvanhilif. It would become a massive sword over 10 meters long, capable of cutting through anything, possessing devastating power. The first reward is Sandalphon, that means there might be a chance to go to the world of Data Live in the future. I was a little surprised by this reward, but it didn't seem very useful to me at the moment. Without thinking too much about it, I then looked at the next reward, Grimoire Astil Manuscript. Grimoire Astil Manuscript, from the Trinity 7 world, it was responsible for combining the power of various grimoires. It is a legendary grimoire that records knowledge from other worlds. It can achieve world reconstruction. Not bad. This overpowered grimoire combined with the recently acquired Pride will be even more potent. My eyes lit up, and the corners of my mouth turned up slightly. This is quite a lucky break. Now I can use all the mage themes without any reservations. System, continue with the third reward. Then, I muttered to myself and continued to check the rewards. Ding Telekinesis, the Esper ability of Tatsumaki from One Punch Man. Average attacks basically can't touch the host, and the host can use telekinesis for long-range attacks. Hearing the system's introduction, the image of a certain lowly wearing a black, long-sleeved dress, with green, curly hair, and a lowly face, Tatsumaki, the Tornado of Terror, appeared in my mind. I knew very well that this lowly could easily deflect an alien projectile capable of destroying an entire city. And when serious, she could effortlessly control and redirect attacks powerful enough to slice continents in half. Telekinesis, huh? Seems like a useful skill for defense, better than nothing. I smiled faintly. After all, whether it was used to deflect enemy attacks or to show off, it was quite a satisfying ability. It was perfect for enhancing my image. System, let's hear about the final reward. Ding, mental out, from a certain magical index, Shokubu Misaki's ability. The host can activate abilities related to the mind. Oh, this reward is also an Esper ability? It's Queen of Tokuwadai's, Misaki Shokubu's mental ability. Shokubu Misaki was ranked 5th among the only 7 level 5 Espers in Academy City. She was the strongest mental type Esper, and her ability was called Mental Out. She could use almost all abilities related to the mind, such as mind reading, communicating with distant objects, erasing thoughts, amplifying will, recreating thoughts, transplanting emotions, and so on. There were just too many. It was practically an all-in-one psychic ability, making her almost omnipotent. This is practically a cheat for picking up girls. I can peek into other people's minds at any time, and even alter their memories. This is something. My eyes lit up, and I was feeling pleased as punch. But that was just wishful thinking. I didn't want to just forcefully alter memories and transplant emotions to win over women. It was boring, and besides, it wasn't really ethical. However, using it occasionally to tease the girls and enhance our relationship, that wasn't a bad idea. I lay on the bed, looking at the darkening sky outside, my eyes a little unfocused. It seems the 3 factions leaders meeting will take some time. Rias and the others also have to repair the damaged buildings. I'm a bit bored. Then, I suddenly got up and took out the Makoto Misaka photo album from the system space. After all, I hadn't properly appreciated its artistic value before. Half an hour later, Rias and the others returned home. Hearing the commotion, I leisurely emerged from my room, a smile on my face. How did the meeting go after I left? Hearing my question, Rias hugged me and replied, well, after a series of unexpected events, the leaders of the 3 factions were concerned, so the peace treaty signing went off without a hitch. And to prevent threats from other factions, all 3 sides will be sending more people to Kuo Town to maintain order. Hearing this, I nodded thoughtfully. It was pretty much the same as in the original story. Suddenly, I noticed that Seraphol wasn't there, so I asked, puzzled, Where did Seraphol go? Hearing my question, Sona adjusted her glasses and smiled. Because of the Chaos Brigade, the evil gods from another world, and the Dragon Phantom, Surzek-sama and Wani-sama had to return to the underworld to prepare. So, Wani-sama has already returned to the underworld. But before Sona could finish, I interrupted her, my tone strange. Seraphol dares to sneak off? When I have time to go to the underworld, I'll have to give her some special training. Hearing my words, Sona was speechless and rolled her eyes at me. It seemed that I had really set my sights on her sister. Thinking of this, Sona was helpless. The other girls also muttered something about me. Rias sighed, Kyoya. You really? Akino said, Kyoya's hunting range is very wide. To think he'd even go after Seraphol-sama. Kaneko, Kyoya-senpai is a pervert. The rest of the girls. In response, I twitched my mouth, feeling a protest rising within me. It's not like I did anything wrong. I just occasionally played some sandwich games with Kiryu and Tomo, occasionally snuck in some kisses with Sona and Tsubaki, and occasionally pinched Kyome and Irina's little butts, okay? Occasionally. It seems like the number of occasionallys is a bit high. Oh well, pervert it is then, it's better than being a lonely single dog. Chapter 108, New System Function, Traversing to a New World. Since the 3 factions had signed the peace treaty, my life returned to normal, teasing innocent girls every day. I was currently planning my next move, now that the system had a new feature, world travel. This meant I could now go to other worlds. Looking at the list of available worlds, I couldn't help but consider my options. Ding! The host can currently choose from the following options. Akane Ga Kill. World. Data Live, World. Trinity 7, World. Strike the Blood, World. Only 4 choices? Looking at the 4 options, I was a little conflicted. the strongest being in the Akane Ga kill. World was Esteth, who was at most Mao class. The world level was low, and there wasn't much to gain there. Data Live, as a combat harem anime, had plenty of cute spirits that I couldn't miss. But I decided to look at the other two worlds first. Trinity 7 and Strike the Blood? Strictly speaking, the combat and power levels of the latter were much higher than the former two. But in terms of danger, the Trinity 7 world was arguably more absurd and bizarre. With breakdown phenomena, events that destroyed worlds and created new ones were commonplace. After careful consideration, I finally chose the world of Strike the Blood. Although the girls there were a bit possessive, they wouldn't be like Rias and Aquino and the others. Besides, there was the incredibly considerate and understanding silver-haired beauty, La Folia Rehavian. She could even help me maintain harmony among my harem members. She was practically a godsend for any man. I had also considered the world of Date Live. After all, who wouldn't like cute spirits throwing themselves at you? But they were also a bit too prone to jealousy. If I wasn't careful, a food-loving Toka might just go into spirit inversion, and I'd be in for a world of hurt. So, my dear spirits, please forgive me. I'll visit you next time. Since time in the DxD world passed incredibly slowly when I traveled to other worlds, and I could return at any time, I had nothing to worry about. But just in case, I cast a protection and warning spell on Rias and the others. If they were ever in danger, I would sense it immediately. Without further ado, I made my selection and began my journey. In the next instant, I vanished in a flash of light. On top of a tall building, a white light flashed, and then my figure appeared. So, this is Itagami Island, the main setting of Strike the Blood. From the top of the skyscraper, I looked at a completely artificial city floating on the sea, built from carbon fiber, resin, metal, and magic. I sighed softly. But this weather is really hot. I knew Itagami Island's temperature was always above 20 degrees Celsius, but the sun is scorching. Then, I used magic to create a protective barrier around myself, instantly cooling down. System, open the map and show me the sign-in characters. I don't even know where the plot is at in this world. I recalled the plot of Strike the Blood as I checked the markers on the system map. There are indeed a few task markers on Itagami Island. But why are there so few sign-in characters? This is strange. Looking at the few dots on the map, I asked the system, puzzled. Ding! The host's current strength no longer requires low-level sign-ins. Unless they are major characters, sign-in tasks will no longer be generated. Hearing the system's explanation, I nodded thoughtfully, then looked at the most obvious sign-in characters in this world. The first primogenitor, known as the Lost Warlord, Ki Juran Barada, Black Grade sign-in. The second primogenitor, known as the Fallgazer, Aswad Gul Aziz, Black Grade sign-in. The third primogenitor, known as the Chaos Bride, Giada Kukulkan, Black Grade sign-in. And the fourth primogenitor, Nagisa Akatsuki, Black Grade sign-in. So, it's Koju Akatsuki's younger sister, Nagisa, who became the fourth progenitor. This must be another change due to my arrival. Saying this, I smiled. I had a good impression of Koju Akatsuki, the original protagonist. This saved me the trouble of dealing with him. The strongest is only at the black grade? That's a bit low. But I guess it's acceptable. I shrugged, a little disappointed. The power levels in Strike the Blood were generally low, completely incomparable to the world of DxD. The strongest beings in this world were the primogenitors. Each one is equivalent to an entire army. They controlled powerful familiars and commanded legions of darkness, established their own empires on 3 different continents. They were lonely immortals. As vampires lived longer, they would accumulate greater power, their feelings and desires intensifying over time. The primogenitors, as the oldest vampires, had accumulated incredible power, unmatched by humans or demons. Although the progenitors possessed immense power, they didn't easily start wars. After long periods of conflict, the demons and humans, thanks to the efforts of the first primogenitor, reached a peace agreement with humanity. The Holy Ground Treaty Organization. The three progenitors and the Holy Ground Treaty Organization mutually monitored the implementation of the peace treaty. I learned that Nagisa had just become the fourth primogenitor, but due to the primogenitor's soul, she had lost her memories. Then, I discovered that the system had also thoughtfully prepared a student identity for me, and I was even in the same class as Koju. It seems I can't escape the fate of going to school. I stood on the high-rise building, a wry smile on my face. Now then, I should go find some fun. Chapter 109, Encountering Three Girls, Hero Saves the Beauty. I strolled down the street, dressed in a dark blue school uniform and white shirt. It's overflowing with youthful energy here. I like it. All around me were girls in revealing summer clothes, full of youthful vigor, and registered demonkind. I narrowed my eyes slightly, noticing that some people were wearing wristbands. These so-called registered demonkind all wore wristbands that restricted their abilities or served as alarm devices. These wristbands were used to distinguish between humans and demonkind. Itagami City is truly a special zone for all beings. There are quite a few demonkind. I can see them everywhere I go. I couldn't help but comment on this. Then I thought back to the DxD world. Both worlds had vampires, devils, dragons, familiars, and so on. But here, they could walk openly in the human world, while in DxD, they had to hide their identities. The difference was quite striking. After wandering the streets for a while, I was about to head to Saikai Academy when my eyes fell upon a girl who surprised me. She had short, silver-white hair, with a butterfly hair ornament at the end of her hair. Her eyes were light blue, her figure was alluring, and she wore the Saikai Academy uniform. She looked like a pure and holy angel. It was none other than Canon Kanase. When she was young, Canon and her mother left the Eldiger Kingdom and came to Itagami Island. After her mother passed away, she was adopted by her mother's brother, Kensei Kanase, and was transformed into an artificial angel. As a princess of a country, she had a tragic background. Thinking about this, I felt a pang of sympathy for this angelic girl. But it seemed like she was waiting for someone. So, I stopped and watched her from a distance. After a while, a dark-haired girl, also wearing the Saikai Academy uniform, ran up to Canon, waving. Nagisa Akatsuki? So Canon was waiting for her. I murmured to myself. Seeing Canon and Nagisa leave, I quietly followed them. But there was also another girl following them. I smiled knowingly, thinking to myself that I had just run into three of the main characters, but I continued to follow them discreetly, not wanting to startle them. I thought nothing would happen, and I was planning to greet Canon and Nagisa. Suddenly, two registered demonkind blocked Nagisa's path in front of a store. It seemed that the two troublemakers were harassing Nagisa. Nagisa, suffering from an acute phobia of demonkind, suddenly snapped. Blood-red light flashed in her eyes, and two sharp fangs emerged from her mouth. Seeing this, before I could react, the girl who had been monitoring Nagisa Himuraji Yakaina immediately intervened. But it was clear that the two thugs weren't going to back down, and they reached out to grab Yakaina. Shikigami. Yakaina frowned and chanted an incantation. The thug who was about to make a move was instantly sent flying. Damn it, is she an attack mage? Seeing his companion knocked away, the other thug recovered and roared in anger. Attack mages were a general term for humans with special abilities, such as magicians and espers. Special members of the military and police, employees of private security companies, and people employed by various other organizations, their identities varied, and the skill systems they used were also diverse. Although they were different, they could all fight against demonkind. To demonkind, they were undoubtedly natural enemies. Moreover, there were even assassin attack mages who made a living hunting demonkind. The remaining thug, driven by fear and anger, revealed his crimson eyes and sharp fangs in public. Burn her to death. The vampire who had been knocked down also roared, summoning his familiar. A burning warhorse charged straight at Yakaina. Seeing this, Yukina's expression turned furious. To summon a familiar in a crowded place. You're out of your mind. Saying this, Yakaina pulled out her weapon, Schneewalzer, from the case she carried on her back. This lance, also known as Snowdrift Wolf, was a weapon developed by the Lion King Agency to combat demonkind with special abilities. It had a sleek, metallic design, with a pointed tip resembling that of a fighter jet. The core of the weapon was a relic passed down by a high god. It was said that there were only 3 in the world, making it difficult to mass produce. It was a secret weapon of the Lion King Agency. Seeing this scene, people on the street screamed and scattered, and the nearby alarms blared. Are they idiots? Fighting in broad daylight? Don't they care about hurting others? Saying that, I teleported between the 2 vampires and Yukaina, neutralizing both sides' attacks. Kyoyo-senpai? Seeing me suddenly appear, Nagisa and Kanase, who knew me because of the system's influence, were shocked. To them, I was just an average senpai. They couldn't understand what I had just done. Not only them, but even Yukaina was stunned and looked at me warily, pulling back with her weapon. You stopped Schneewalzer in an instant? Who are you? Why are you interfering? Hearing this question, I looked at the girl helplessly and replied, interfering? Look at what you're doing. You're fighting in the middle of the city. Don't you care about causing a panic? I'll take care of this matter. Then, I turned to look at the 2 vampires lying on the ground, a mischievous glint in my eyes. Damn it, who are you? Why are you interfering in our business? Having been knocked down twice, one of the vampires glared at me, shouting angrily. In response, I said calmly, it doesn't matter who I am. But since you dared to lay a hand on my cute kohai, you'd better be prepared. Saying that, I activated my mental out ability, exerting mental control over them. You like to harass people, don't you? Now, I order you to go to the demolished zone and harass other demon thugs. And invite them to a sword fight. Yes, master. After the mental suggestion, the 2 vampires, their expressions dazed, stood up and stumbled away. Seeing this bizarre scene, the 3 girls were shocked. Over just like that? And what was that about, master? Chapter 110, Blue and White Stripes? Little Angel Konan-chan. Who are you? Seeing this bizarre scene, Yukaina couldn't help but ask again. Hearing her question, I raised an eyebrow, a teasing glint in my eyes. Who am I? Why don't you tell me who you are first, sneaking around following my adorable kohais? Hearing this, Nagisa and Kanan also looked at Yukaina, puzzled. They hadn't met this girl before, as far as they could remember. Taken aback, Yukaina looked flustered. After all, her mission was to monitor the 4th primogenitor, Nagisa Akatsuki. Her orders were to operate in secret, without revealing her presence. If you won't say it, I will. You're the attack mage dispatched by the Lion King organization, Yukaina Himuraji, the monitor of Nagisa Akatsuki. Observing Yukina's reaction, I immediately revealed her identity. At this moment, Yukaina was shocked by my sudden words. Her eyes widened. Not only did this boy know her identity, but he even knew about her mission. Ha! Hearing my words, Nagisa looked at Yukaina, surprised. Although she didn't understand terms like Lion King organization and attack mage, the words 4th primogenitor were very sensitive to her. Is this girl here to monitor me? As for Kanan, she was even more confused, not understanding what they were talking about at all. Just then, I suddenly spoke up. Tell the 3 saints of the Lion King organization not to bother with Nagisa. Otherwise, they should be prepared for the consequences. Also, a friendly reminder, don't blindly trust others, or you might get betrayed without even realizing it. After thinking for a moment, I added another sentence. Hearing this, Yukaina was suspicious, not understanding what I meant, but she still stared at me coldly. After a few moments, Yukaina relaxed her guard and put Schneewalzer back in its guitar case. However, as luck would have it, a strong gust of wind suddenly blew by, lifting the girl's short skirt. Blue and white stripes. My gaze was inadvertently drawn to the sight, and I blurted out something that shocked everyone present. When I realized what I had said, I quickly covered my mouth, my expression a little awkward. That was an accident. I didn't mean to look. Believe it or not, I actually didn't see anything. The three girls' mouths twitched. Hentai. After taking a deep breath, Yukina spat out the word, her face flushed as she quickly pulled down her skirt. Sigh. She's quite the tsundere, I murmured, watching her go. But in the next moment, I was suddenly pulled aside by Nagisa, and I heard her disgruntled complaint in my ear. Kyoya, when did you become so strong? How could you hide this from me for so long? You acted like a normal person back at my house. I can't believe you. Yes, I didn't even know Kyoya-senpai was so strong. Kanon also looked at me with admiration. I was helpless about this. I couldn't very well tell them I was a transmigrator, could I? I could only find an excuse. Actually, I only recently awakened these abilities. So I wasn't hiding anything from you, Nagisa. Saying this, I activated my Rinnegan, then moved closer so the two of them could see clearly. Seeing my changed eyes, the two girls finally believed my words. Nagisa recovered and continued to scold me. Why did you disappear during summer break? You made Kojo and me so worried. Didn't I say I was going on a trip? But don't worry, I'll protect you from now on, Nagisa. I smiled in response. Ugh, dummy Kyoya, what nonsense are you saying? My words seemed to have touched Nagisa's heart. She turned red. She nervously hugged my arm, but her eyes were full of joy. Kyoya-senpai and Nagisa have such a good relationship. Seeing the scene, Kanon exclaimed in admiration, her tone full of envy. Of course. Kyoya and I have been friends since childhood. Wagging my arm, Nagisa couldn't help but giggle. Nagisa, have you still not subdued any familiars? I seemed to remember something, and I couldn't help but ask Nagisa. Subdue familiars? I don't have any plans for that. Nagisa was first stunned, then said weakly. Looking at Nagisa's pitiful appearance, I was immediately defeated. I rubbed her little head and said helplessly, I can't argue with that. You have so much power within you, yet you don't care at all. Isn't that because Kyoya is here beside me? You just said you would protect me, so I'm not afraid. Nagisa giggled. Familiars? What familiars? What are Kyoya-senpai and Nagisa talking about? Kanon listened to the two of them, her light blue eyes filled with curiosity. Nagisa and I looked at each other awkwardly, remembering there was still Kanon here. Just then, the system suddenly issued tasks. Ding! Discovered target character, Nagisa Akatsuki, task grade, red, task condition, help her successfully subdue familiars. Ding! Discovered target character, Kanon Kanase, task grade, red, task condition, help your cute kohai change her tragic fate. Seeing the tasks issued by the system, I changed my mind about continuing to hide Nagisa's identity. I would also have to find an opportunity to help Nagisa subdue her familiars. What if the familiar doesn't obey? Violence and hypnosis, and if that doesn't work, a direct warning of death. It's not like I can't handle a few familiars. As for resolving the artificial angel spell on Kanon's body, that was a piece of cake for me. An artificial angel? How could that compare to the pure angel reincarnation energy given to me by the Bible goddess? Kanon-chan, when you hear about Nagisa's identity later, don't be too surprised. I then looked at the little angel Kanon, my voice exceptionally gentle. I understand, Kyoya-senpai. Kanon blinked her eyes and nodded. And Nagisa next to me widened her eyes, and said worriedly, Kyoya, are you really going to tell Kanon-chan? But... Before Nagisa could finish, I interrupted her. Nagisa, there's no point in hiding it any longer. You've already been targeted by the Lion King organization. Besides, this isn't really that big of a secret. There are already quite a few people who know your identity, so it's better to be open with Kanon-chan. Besides, I'm here to take care of everything else. Besides, Kanon-chan is your best friend. You don't want to keep hiding it from her, do you? Saying this, I held Nagisa's small hand and comforted her. Hearing this, Nagisa looked at me and Canon, and after a moment of silence, she agreed. Alright. I understand. That wraps up this part of What If sign-in system in high school DxD. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.